We need to talk about the number one mistake that most men make when they're going through an unwanted divorce. For most of my clients, this is a situation they're in. Their wives chose the divorce and they don't want it, and they feel really, really powerless. They can't change her mind. They can't make this stop. They've tried, and they can't protect their children from the impact of it either. And that's often the most painful part. If you are going through an unwanted separation or divorce, you have more power. You have more power over your own situation and over your children's situation than you may realize. But you don't have that power. You can't capitalize on it if you keep giving it away to her. This is the number one mistake that men make during divorce. It's the number one mistake that I see, and it happens when the divorce is unwanted. They become so focused on her, on what she's doing, on what she's thinking, on how her actions are impacting them and the children. They're completely focused on her, and they neglect their own nervous system state. This is a fatal flaw that will spiral you down into just this pit of despair that it is very, very difficult to come back from. Because look at what's happening when you're focused on her, when you're trying to change her mind, trying to figure out how to get her to understand, to see the light, to admit the mistakes that she's made, to see her role in this, to see that you're not as awful as she thinks you are, to remember the good times in your relationship. When you are focused on what she's doing, how to change her mind, or all of the damage and destruction that she is causing to you and your family, what happens to you? You feel horrible. Horrible. Like horrible is not even the right word. You feel awfully. You feel hopeless. You feel desperate. You feel overwhelmed. You feel terrified. You can't focus at work. You can't be present with your kids. You're trying to be with them. You're trying to support them in this, but it just keeps reminding you of what's missing and how it should be different. Right? And this is devastating for so many men. I have seen men lose multiple six-figure businesses because they can't focus on it, because this is all consuming. I've seen men damage their relationship and lose connection with their children. I've seen men alienate friends and family. And perhaps worst of all, I have personally seen men kill themselves down in this pit because the pain becomes so overwhelming and so unbearable. Focusing on her, what she's doing, the damage it's causing, or how to stop and change it is not a solution, because there's nothing there that you can control. If you could control how she thinks, how she feels, or what she does, you would not be in this situation in the first place. But if you continue to focus your attention on trying to change something you can't control, at best, you're going to be in fight or flight all the time. Right? That is an anxiety-producing situation. I'm trying to control it. I can't control it. I'm out of control. All of that uncertainty and fear is going to get overwhelming. And that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, it is going to take you deep into depression, and you are going to end up isolating yourself, disconnecting from the people that you love, from the life that you love, from your own future and the relationships that could help nourish you back to health. An unwanted divorce throws your nervous system into an automatic fight or flight response, causing you to lose sleep, lose or gain weight, struggle to focus at work, have panic or rage attacks, and ultimately damage relationships with the people you care about the most. Because of this, learning effective nervous system regulation is the only rational response to a separation or divorce, and that's exactly what I teach in my free masterclass. Type masterclass into the comments below and I'll send you the link. If you have been focusing on her, I am willing to bet you recognize some of these symptoms in yourself. You're having a hard time sleeping. You wake up in the night and you have a hard time going back to sleep. You've got ruminating thoughts. Your brain just goes on overdrive. You can't let go of the memories. Maybe you have mental images of good times or her with another person, another man, having sex with somebody. You are having a hard time concentrating and focusing. You might be having heart palpitations or shaking in your arms and legs. You might be losing a lot of weight or alternately gaining a lot of weight. You might be noticing that people are withdrawing from you, that you have kind of exhausted your friends and family's tolerance for hearing about your pain. And you might be finding that you're starting to notice that you really don't trust people, that you have a lot of negative or bitter, angry thoughts towards women in general, not just your ex-wife. There's a whole litany of symptoms that will start showing up in you as you stay focused on her in this situation you cannot control. So what should you be doing instead? The shift you can make here that will give you back so much power, and this is not just for you, this is what's going to give you power to improve your children's situation, no matter what your ex-wife does, is to focus on regulating your own nervous system. Right now, you are fueling its dysregulation if you're focusing on her. You're telling your brain, we need this change to happen. We need her to think this way, to do this thing, to stop doing this thing, and you can't, right? So there, we're just in danger. There's nothing we can do about it. That is a recipe for fight or flight that will eventually turn to freeze when you realize how powerless you are. And when you are in that state, all of these physiological changes happen in your body. The way your brain functions changes. Your focus narrows. All you can see is the problem. You can't see the bigger picture. You are going to get yourself into situations when you're in fight or flight or freeze for too long that are not good for you. This is where men either give up way too much in the legal process of divorce, or they get drawn into these long, nasty legal battles that alienate their children and cost a ton of money. And this is also where men lose their jobs, lose their businesses, disconnect from their children, damage other relationships. And it's not because there's anything wrong with you. It's because you're in this fight or flight state. You're in panic or anger, right? Fight or flight. Or you're in freeze. You're shutting down into this depression. Your brain doesn't function the same way when the nervous system is activated. These are survival responses that are happening in your body. It changes the way you hear. It changes the way you see. You start to lose peripheral vision. You can't hear high and low tones. You can't hear middle tones so easily. Your brain is hypersensitized for the high and the low. Your skeletal muscle is all activated and you lose a lot of blood flow to your digestive system. Your digestion actually slows down and over time can start to cause problems for you. Heart rate increases, blood pressure increases. There are all these physical changes that happen when you stay in this state, and your body is not meant to be in this state for very long. Fight and flight and freeze are states we're meant to go into to survive an acute threat. And when the danger passes, we're supposed to come back out. But when you are going through an unwanted divorce and you're so focused on what your ex is doing or not doing and how it's impacting you, you're keeping your system in a constant state of fight or flight or freeze. It's not healthy. It will start to have physical impacts. And that's maybe one of the most profound and amazing shifts that there's so many that I get to see as a divorce coach. But a couple that stand out are men who have had heart problems during divorce, sometimes years after divorce. And when they finally learn how to regulate their nervous system, their heart problems go away, the palpitations, the arrhythmias start to heal, blood pressure goes down. This is good for your health, but it also changes the way you interact and your ability to be present with your kids and show up at work. And so this is something else that I see in my work. I just had a fabulous email the other day from a client who's been in my Better Beyond Divorce program for about 4.5 months. And he was like, I hope I can still keep using the resources in the program, but I'm really not focused on the divorce anymore. He's like, I've got a little more grieving I'm doing. He's like, but I'm feeling really okay there. And now, I'm really thinking about my purpose and my career and what this next move is for me, what it is that's going to be really fulfilling and where I want to spend my time and the kind of work I want to do. And that shift happens. I get to see it in so many men that as your nervous system regulates and you start to heal from this divorce, you start to be able to step back and see the entirety of your life in these other areas that you've been neglecting when you're just in this survival mode. But maybe the biggest area that's going to feel the impact is your children. And for a lot of men, this is the source of powerlessness during the divorce, is they know divorce is bad for the kids and they can't do anything about it. And I don't know if there's anything worse. I mean, seeing people go through so many painful things, but watching a parent who loves their children feel powerless to protect them from harm, it's agonizing. It is a terrible situation to be in. So if you are a father and you want to support your children, whether they're small or grown, regulating your own nervous system is the key to doing that. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So when your nervous system is dysregulated, what I hear from my clients is that they struggle to be present with the kids. Maybe they can do it part of the time, but it's a lot of work. And they spend a lot of time feeling like anxious, disconnected. The kids aren't reacting well to them. They seem uncomfortable around them. They seem nervous. They seem anxious. Or they have a really hard time handling the children's emotions, right? And they find themselves lashing out or getting angry when that's the opposite of what they want the relationship with their kids to be like. So when you have small kids and your nervous system is regulated, you're providing a physical model. Children learn to regulate their emotions from the adults that they're spending time around. So if your nervous system is dysregulated, that's what you're teaching your children. And so if you want your children to get through this, to be able to handle the grief, the anger, the disappointment, the shame, the regret, right? You cannot stop your children from experiencing these emotions in their lives, but you can have a huge impact on how they handle them and how they treat themselves when these emotions come up. This is also true with grown children. Just in about the last month, I've had 2 different clients come to me with these beautiful stories. One of them had a daughter who hadn't spoken to him for several years. She was very, very angry with him about the divorce, was really on her mom's side. He did all of this work. He shifted the focus from that conflict to himself, right? Stopped making this huge mistake of focusing on the ex-wife and all the things going wrong, started dealing with his own nervous system. The way he approached his daughter was showing up at these court cases, like his whole demeanor, his attitude, his voice, his body language, it all shifted when his nervous system came into balance. Not only is his daughter talking to him now, they're actually going on vacation together next month. Another beautiful example, I have another client who's going through a second divorce, and he's got a daughter who's in her late 20s, I believe. And he was finally able to sit down with her for the first time in some 15, 20 years and hear what the first divorce was like for her, what she went through and how she had carried some of that pain for a long time. He was able to be with her. He was able to listen and not get activated, right? He was able to stay calm and present and emotionally engaged with her. And that allowed them to repair the rift in their relationship. He was able to be part of her wedding, which was a very small and intimate ceremony. So even if there has been damage done to your relationship with your kids, you can heal it and repair it through regulating your own nervous system. That's where this all has to start. Because when you're in that activated state and you're suffering all of those physiological symptoms, the high blood pressure and the shaking and the heart palpitations and the changes in hearing, changes in vision, changes in thinking, right? It affects everything from your finances to your physical health, to your relationships, to your children. You have a lot more power. You have a lot more control over your future and over your current present sense of well-being, happiness, fulfillment, and that of your children than you realize. But if you're focused right now, all of your attention and your energy on your ex-wife, what she's doing, you are giving away that power. You are handing it all to her. And that is not fair for you, and it is definitely not fair for your children. The fight or flight response that you experience when you go through an unwanted divorce is not a voluntary response. It's not something you can just shut off. The impact of being in that involuntary state for too long can be really devastating. We're talking overwhelming emotions, shaking, heart palpitations, lashing out in rage, shutting down and withdrawing, being unable to show up at work, struggling to be present with your children, and finding yourself unable to trust or feel safe in the world. And all of these symptoms, they are not mental. This is part of a specific set of physiologic changes that happen in your body when you go into a fight or flight response. They happen when your nervous system is activated, and the symptoms go away when your nervous system comes back into balance. If you want to get off the emotional roller coaster, if you want to stop the intrusive and ruminating thoughts so that you can be really present with your kids, still be successful in your career, make sound legal decisions, and really be capable of moving forward from the separation or divorce, it is essential that you learn to effectively regulate your nervous system. And that's exactly what I'll teach you how to do inside my free masterclass. So just type masterclass into the comments below this video, and I will send you this free tutorial on effective nervous system regulation.